round hole.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
I think the biggest part about finding the right guys is giving everybody an opportunity to, actually get their foot in the door. Because a lot of times, like you brought up before we actually started the show, that sometimes you don't think it's the right person, and it ends up being the right person, and they end up taking you to a whole different level. So
they got to have the passion for it, because like I said, there's not a lot of glory in it. You got to just love, whether you're creating content or or just however you're involved. You just kind of got to like it, because it's got to be a passion, or it'll just grind you to death.
Yeah, that's a very true story, and something I had to get back to, which I wasn't doing as much of earlier in this off season, was writing. And I kind of felt like it became like a chore to an extent to do a lot of stuff I was doing. I started writing again, and it was all like back to normal. Like everything just felt like it, like it should have been in the first place. So yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, if you get the right crew, it kind of, like I said, if you get the right crew, and next thing you know, you're like, oh, I got free time to do something else, whether it's helping building the brand or the marketing, whatever. So it's always the right people.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I absolutely agree with you. So what's going on? How's your day going?
Day's going good. I mean, first day back from vacation. I was in the Outer Banks all last week.
Oh, nice.
I meant to tell you, like, I don't know if I just didn't send it. Like, I think I typed it up and I just must not send it, but I'm only like an hour north of the Outer Banks.
Dude, if I had known, I would have just came on by and crashed with a case of beer. I mean, family and all.
Dude, I would have had you over, man. I got a futon. I got an extra futon. Let's go.
Yes. Yeah, and like I said, I only sleep 3 hours a night, so really I only need like half a futon.
Oh, that works.
But yeah, did the show live from the Outer Banks. I got some guys in Jersey, I got some guys in New York, so back to the regular grind of stuff today. And that was a little hard getting ramped up. You know what I mean? Like I've been away for like 10 days, and now I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to earn a living here, so I got to do some other stuff.
What, the Michael Thomas news didn't get you excited? The Cam Akers news didn't get you excited back and talk about football?
No, and we're a big lacrosse family too. So like lacrosse is, kind of in the middle of the big stories, because football's kind of like, dripping, and you're kind of waiting for something, and then you get like Rodgers news saying that he'll come back to Green Bay, trade for Randall Cobb, and I'm like, all right, I'm sure the Wisconsin guys are happy.
That one of the stipulations, I saw that was trending. Was that one of the stipulations? Was like you have to trade for Randall Cobb?
That was about 2 hours ago.
Yeah, I saw it was trending. I was like, wait, is this serious, or is this just some troll that put something out saying you have to go get Randall Cobb?
No, it came from Trey Wingo, right from ESPN.
So is this going to be the new trend now, where like franchise quarterbacks start to dictate more of the roster moves, kind of like we see in the NBA?
It's a great question. I looked at it like, if you notice the last 2 years, you're getting guaranteed money in contracts. 3-4 years ago, you didn't get guaranteed contracts. Your contract was worth the napkin it was written on, right? Now the new trend is guaranteed money. So what's the next progression is, okay, I'm going to come, but I'm not going to come unless I got Dwayne Wade. You know what I mean? LeBron and Dwayne Wade and Bosh. And it's a great, Ryan, it's a great point. Is it the new trend? I guess if you're a big enough star.
Well, no, the part about this is the salary cap gurus, right? Like Kai, what's his name down there for the Saints, right? Yep. He's behind Mickey Loomis. He's their salary cap expert. He's figured out how to, work all these contract type things in. It's these salary cap gurus who are figuring out loopholes that was created in the 2011 CBA that are just now kind of getting exploited to an extent. And It's guaranteed money over the first few years with almost no guaranteed money on the back end, which allows these players to renegotiate their contracts while still allowing teams to, somewhat have some sort of salary cap space. But they can hold that leverage because there's nothing guaranteed on the books. So they can be like, hey, you got to trade me, right? You got to get rid of me, or else I'm just not going to play. So that's where the leverage is created, is almost, to a vice with these salary cap guys who figured out a loophole, but now the players are coming back and figuring out the loophole in the back end.
Yeah, and I think it has to, believe it or not, it has to start with the player. The player's going to want to be able to go, right?
Yeah.
He's got to be the one that calls his agent and says, Drew, I love Indianapolis, but if you want to move me to Denver, I'm cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got to have the player willing to get up and move his family, or willing to leave a franchise that is, supporting him. So it all depends on if the player's willing to do it. There's the mercenary who's willing to do it, and then there's the guy who's just not going to go, and he'll let that leverage kind of dissipate, right? Because some guys are willingly to play in another town. Like Rodgers, I think, is willingly to get out of Green Bay. He's a California kid, right? So if you're going to put him in, another, I'm sure he'd be willing to play in a lot of places. But then there's some guys that don't want to go anywhere, and they just kind of, they don't really take advantage of it. So to Ryan's point is this the new trend? I think there's a really good opportunity for those top 10, top 20 NFL stars to have new leverage, I guess. It's always been there, like you said, Chase. It's always been there. But I think the players now are just kind of like, it's a new world. They're actually acting on what a lot of guys didn't know was there.
Well, it's like the Taysom Hill contract, and I'm going to end on this, and we're going to get started with the show, Ryan, if you're down with that. But
yeah,
Taysom Hill, right? He got this contract, and it's like what 120 million guaranteed, or not guaranteed, 120 million that's spread over 5 years. Lines. It ends up being an average of like 25 million a year. This year, it's all going to count, essentially against the cap, and then after that, it's pretty much like a fake contract, essentially, right? Like the contract that the guaranteed money doesn't exist. But if Taysom Hill goes out and balls out, and we're going to talk about, the TV contracts and everything here in a little bit, because I do want to address it with one player coming up. If he goes and balls out and he's like, hey, Jameis Winston is gone now. You guys expect me to be your starting quarterback. If he ends up holding out and being like, hey, I want more guaranteed money. I want to get up closer to 35 million a year across the next 4 years, something like that. He can do that. And the Saints are kind of screwed because if he balls out, that means the Saints are most likely winning. And that's going to put the Saints in a really tough situation, try and draft a quarterback in this upcoming year, the issues that they have surrounding up. So they're not going to be able to bring in a big name free agent. They're not going to be able to operate like they have been over the past few years because they're not going to have the studs. It's going to be interesting.
It's funny because I always look at it like if you want it bad enough, they just make it happen. That's why I don't get caught up in a lot of I know you sent me some cool show notes. I try not to get caught up in a lot of the money, man, because you know why? A, it's not my money. And B, they always, if they want it bad enough, when did you ever have a team go like this? Yeah, we really wanted to sign, player X, but we just couldn't afford it. If they really want him bad enough, they'll do anything to sign that player. So if the Saints need a QB, they'll go to the Giants and say, hey, we'll give you our first round next year and a third for that Bears pick, right? Or whatever it is. I'm just using that example because it's close to home, right? If they need a quarterback, they're not going to let Tyson Hill hold them hostage. He's Tyson Hill, right? You know what I mean? Or Taysom Hill, excuse me. So they'll just make it happen somewhere. They're not going to – they know for 14 years, 15 years, they've had phenomenal QB. They're not going to just go into 2022 with nothing, or 23 at that point, maybe.
Yeah, it'll just be interesting on how they build because, for multiple different situations. But let's kick off this Washington football team show. On to you, Ryan. Sorry.
Let's get into it. So welcome to another edition of Washington Intervention here. So I'm your host, Ryan. You can find me on Twitter at WhatGibbsFF. And got a really exciting show for you tonight. So I'm joined by my co-host, Chase Vernon. Mark's got the night off this week, and we have our special guest, New York Giants Rush, over here, bringing us in all of our New York Giants guru information here. So I'm excited to have you on, get a totally different perspective from the NFC East than what we're used to having here, just being Washington football based. So a couple things that we're going to hit on today, just to kind of give you a rundown of the show. We are going to hit on the new breaking news on Jonathan Allen's contract extension. We'll go over training camp as we get ready to kick off tomorrow, actually, for Washington football team. And we'll get into some discussions around some of the positions. I want to pick your brain a little bit on the Giants side around your secondary. We'll get into some of the receivers and a little bit of banter there on who has the best receiving core and who's the number one in the NFC East. But thank you for joining us. First off, we're super excited to have you on.
No, thanks for reaching out. It's funny because one of my writers asked me, it's like, what are you doing that for? I'm like, one, they seem like good guys. I was like, two, I'm like, the Giants hate the Eagles. The Eagles hate Dallas. And who really hates Washington? I don't know anybody that really hates Washington. So I was like, how bad can these guys be?
Yeah, it just depends. I like actually looking at it from a third-party perspective, and I'm a lot more, I guess, objective to Washington football fans. Although I'm one myself, I kind of like to be the bearer of bad news to an extent. So it's kind of like, just sitting there and getting another perspective from a different, divisional mate is always something that I love to have input on.
Yeah, and it's good because sometimes you wear those like burgundy and gold glasses and like you're looking at through it as a Washington fan. It's sometimes good to get that, exposure of someone else that's not so close to it or thinking about it as passionately as we may be. With some of the stuff, you're so invested in it for so many years, you're not always thinking straight.
Well, especially if you don't actually have an official name of your team, that's rough.
This is why we need a team name, man. This is why I just want something.
And I don't even mean that to be sarcastic. It's fun. We can have fun with it. But like, it is at the point where you're like, okay, can we figure this out already?
That's why I'm excited for 2022, man. I really am. But jumping right into it, though, because this was pretty big news today, a couple hours ago. I mean, huge news. We've been talking about on the show for a couple of weeks, like what we thought Washington was going to do with this extra cap space that they have. Got a couple of big free agents coming up over the next couple of years. Jonathan Allen really seems to be one of the core members from a locker room perspective, a total Ron Rivera guy. So Washington just extended him this year, or today, for 4 years, $72 million. This is coming 4 months after the Giants locked up Leonard Williams for 3 years, $63 million. So we're paying about $3 million less per season. I felt like that was a pretty good bargain in a cap-strapped year, especially when the salary cap is supposed to balloon potentially to $205 million plus next year. So quick question over to New York Giants Rush over here. So after hearing about the Jonathan Allen contract, how did that really make you feel with the Leonard Williams one? I know you said it's not your money, so not really caring too much, but are you surprised that Jonathan Allen got less money than Leonard Williams did? Kind of in the ballpark of what you'd expect for someone like Jonathan Allen?
So I like the player. You know what I mean? I've always liked the player. Cat's 26 years old, first round pick, right? Really stout against the run. But and again, I don't get too tied up in the money, but if you want to go down that rabbit hole, basically they overpaid for a defensive tackle, so to speak, because he's gone backwards in sacks. He's gone backwards in tackles for a loss. He's basically, and now with Chase Young on the outside and Kerrigan gone, they really only need him to stop the run. He's great at stopping the run. He averages 64 tackles a year, but his sacks have gone from 8 to 6 to 2. His tackles for a loss in 2020 were 3. He's trending in the wrong direction because he's not a pass rusher anymore. He's not expected to be that dog that he once was. Now with Chase Young on the outside, who is dynamic as it comes, when I get into the nuts and bolts of it, he is a phenomenal defensive tackle, whether you're playing 3-4-4-3, nose guard against the run. So it looks on paper anyway that they overpaid for him, because when I flip it to look at Leonard Williams, which I would think prior to 2020, they were very similar players, right? But then you look at the trend for Williams, he went from 2 sacks to 5.5 sacks to 11.5 sacks. He's not as stout against run, right? 42, 46, 57. Still trending up, though, right? Tackles for loss, 14 compared to 3. Quarterback hits, 14 compared to 30, right? Leonard Williams is transitioning with Patrick Graham's defense to more of a pass-rushing defensive end, or what they call NASCAR for the Giants, is where they put all pass rushers across the line of scrimmage. Instead of nose guard or D tackle, they bring in all edge guys across the front. They call it NASCAR. Leonard Williams is turning more into a pass rusher where the other scenario is more of, did they overpay for just a run stopper?
So I'm going to give you an interesting stat here, because this is something that I think doesn't show up in the box score, and I think is one of Jonathan Allen's biggest kind of wins for us, is he opens it up for everybody else. And it's interesting because he actually was 8th in all of interior defensive linemen from a pass rush win rate last year at 17%. Yes. And to your point, stout against the run, 2nd in run stops at 30 around interior defensive linemen. But I actually think he just isn't your stereotypical winner from like a when you think of a pass rusher, right? He uses a lot of different moves. Like he's got a great swipe, he's got a great swim move, great bull rush moves. Like he's become that technician, and I actually think he does a lot more for the pass rush game than people realize. Just because he's not putting up sack numbers, he's actually generating decent pressure and taking up a lot of attention on the defensive line. So I think he's kind of, from a box score perspective, underappreciated from a lot of people. And I think I actually
mean from your fan base?
I think from all fan bases, to be honest with you. And he's a guy that like.
I wouldn't go that far. Just so you know, like again, like I'm giving you the other side of the coin. Like I've got Leonard Williams and I've got Dexter Lawrence, right? We just let Tomlinson walk to Minnesota. Like outside of those guys, he'd be the next guy I would want if he was a free agent. I don't think he's underappreciated from my perspective, because the defensive line for Washington is where you make your money. And I actually really like the player, but your original question was the contract. So I was just talking about the numbers, like pure run stoppers. And he's got really good hands. For a big man, he's got really good hands. It's just he's not there tackles for loss. He's not there for QB hits anymore, where, when he came in the league, that's what he was going to be. So I think he's kind of leveled off what he is. So I think they overpaid him a little, but he's still probably underappreciated for Washington football fans. I think the league has a high respect for him.
We're not the only ones that mess up on the name.
Real quick, first off, I liked Leonard Williams. Like I thought that we should have taken him over Brandon Scherf at the time. Hindsight, I'm glad of where we ended up. But when we look at the quarterback hurries, according to PFF, we have Jonathan Allen actually getting more hurries. The essential thing is, like, you have these edge rushers with Montez Sweat and Chase Young, who are just phenomenal edge rushers. So Jonathan Allen is forcing these guys out of the pocket, and guess who's picking up the scraps? You got the edge rushers doing that. So Jonathan Allen is still getting more pressure on the quarterback than Leonard Williams, and I think he's like in the top 5 for interior defensive linemen at getting pressure on the quarterback, or getting hurries, I should say. So sitting there and looking at it, I think he offers more than what the box score ends up showing you.
Agreed. Yeah. I just want to let you know that the Mason-Dixon line, we don't believe in pressures. They're overrated, because here's the thing. What you need to understand, when the ball is snapped, just from the moment the ball is snapped, you're pressuring the quarterback, okay? Like the minute the ball is snapped, that's a pressure, okay? Because you have forward momentum. Pressures is and for that analytic company that you mentioned, we don't talk about them here because we don't. Anyone, I had a long conversation with one of their analysts, and he told me that they count there's half a sacks as full sacks. And at that moment, I knew the conversation was over, because they're very hot and cold, and we're not believers in a lot of the things that they put out there. They're good at what they do, but remember, I'm agreeing with you. Like, he's underappreciated, but I think by your own fan base, because I think everyone else looks at it like, I'd take him in a heartbeat. I just meant, for all that he does do, take the pressures out of it. He's gone down in every category, whether it's QB hits, tackles for loss, sacks. What is he? He's a phenomenal run stopper. You can't pay $63 million for a run stopper.
All right.
So, quick point there, though, just to validate. So, Chase, you were right. He was 5th among interior defensive linemen from a pass rush grade perspective. And it's interesting you talk about the analytics stuff, because our guest last week, Logan Thomas, was kind of Logan Paulson, I'm mixing up tight ends, was actually kind of saying the same thing. There's a lot of flaws in the way they come up with some of their metrics, and kind of does skew some of it. From a fan base perspective, and you made up a good point, though. From a fan base perspective, I think he is underappreciated. I think Deron Payne gets a lot of the accolades from an interior defensive lineman from fans, and even Matt Ioannidis. And like, Payne has that elite first step, right? That explosiveness that people look for from like a pass rushing interior defensive lineman. And that's not Jonathan Allen, right? So I think that's the piece where I think he is underappreciated within Washington fans as well.
I just telling you, like, I really like the player. Like, I mean, like he's got Pro Bowl quality. now you got guys on the outside. He can have a Pro Bowl year, like now that he's paid. It's a little bit much, only because you asked about the contract, not about the player. The player could play, and I think the only people that underappreciate him might be the guys in your backyard. And I think everybody else is looking at him like, okay, he might have got overpaid, but who cares? He can play, if that makes any sense.
So I feel like he's actually going to be a bargain, though, within not this upcoming year, but the following year, he's going to be a bargain. And I think he's actually going to be like probably 12th to 15th highest paid defensive lineman at that interior defensive lineman at that point, just because the way the salary cap is going to explode over the next few years.
Yeah, they're projecting like minimum like 205 million.
Yep, 205
next
is the number.
year. Yeah, so
Amazon's kind of changing the game. So I'm with you. All the streaming changes the game.
So now that we got Jonathan Allen locked up, like we're getting ready to hit training camp around the league this week. Chase, just to kick it over to you really quickly, like as we get into now, we don't have to talk about the contracts and locking up Jonathan Allen, because I know that was a big thing, a big question mark coming into the training camp. But what are you most excited about? Are there any like big positional battles that you're keeping an eye in on that are really something that you're going to pay attention to over the next couple of weeks?
What I'm looking at is the Giants' offensive line, actually, believe it or not. I think the Giants' offensive line is one of the most intriguing things in the whole entire NFC East. Like, you have players who are young players, right? You got Matt Pert. You have Shane Lemieux. You have Andrew Thomas. I mean, these are three studs that are coming out. And then who was drafted in 2018 that's the left guard?
Are you thinking Will Hernandez?
It was Hernandez. Will Hernandez. But nobody knows if he'll start this year.
Yeah, but I mean that's kind of like the intriguing prospect is the fact that these players actually take the next leap as a unit, because we could be looking at the Dallas Cowboys to an extent back when they first end up getting like this dominant defensive line with Tyron Smith, with there we go, another brain fart for their guard, right? Like we could end up seeing like this Giants offensive line emerge as one of the top offensive lines in the NFL. And I was talking about it all last offseason, how I thought that could, like, this could be the groundwork in order to create this phenomenal thing around a quarterback that they eventually bring in, because they're going to need a quarterback, obviously. But I'm messing with you about Daniel Jones. But
so let me ask a question to that line, though. You talked about Andrew Thomas, you talked about Matt Pert. Where does Nate Solder fit in at this point?
He's going to try to play right tackle, but he's going to be back. He'll be a backup, and he'll be gone next year.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. He's an older veteran. They're going to end up finding somebody younger to replace him at right tackle. And honestly, I don't even know if he wins the job, to be honest.
He came back for the money, and I don't know how much passion he has. One of the best quotes I ever was when Michael Strahan was sitting on the beach with Eddie Murphy's wife, and he said, I can do all the physical stuff. It's the daily grind I don't know if I want to come back to. He's like, the meetings will grind you right into the ground, and I don't know if I got it in me. So here comes a guy who's been gone, and he's had a lot of personal stuff. He's got a little boy with cancer. He's a big community guy. He's a big guy, a religious guy. He's like he's got all the way, and he's got a certain way he does things. Coming back may just not feel natural to him. He's been out of the game for a year. However, at this point in time, it's Matt Pert's job to lose.
UConn guy.
Yeah.
Love it.
And so that's kind of, to answer your question, like he won't be here next year, and this year he'll be fighting to back up Pert.
The other one that I'm looking at that I'm very excited about overall from the NFC East training camp, something I want to keep my eye on is who wins the second, third, fourth, fifth job in New York as well. I think New York has by far the best positional battles of any team in the NFC East. I don't even think it's close. Like Dallas is going to be playing with a terrible secondary. Who's going to win? That would end up being the third cornerback on a team in any other division or any other team, period. You have Philadelphia, who's adding on the right pieces, but there's really no positional battles. There's
no one's on the ball.
Yeah, that's going to be something we're going to talk about here in a minute, I'm sure. And then sitting there and looking at Washington, I'm interested in Adam Humphries. I think that's an intriguing prospect because they could end up playing the veteran out of the slot and putting Curtis Samuel on the outside, which I hate, Ryan. I can't stand that. I can't stand the thought of Curtis Samuel playing on the outside again. You know, he had a ton of air yards because he's fast, but he's not doing anything with those air yards because he can't track the ball. So I would much rather see Curtis Samuel on the inside and see Dyami Brown on the outside, you know, so that way we actually have a deep threat who's good at tracking the ball, but he's a rookie. So what really happens with that? Are we going to alternate? Where is Logan Thomas going to line up? Because he lined up so many times at tight end. I mean, at wide receiver this past year. I mean, how is that going to end up, you know, kind of working its way? But I feel like that's something that we're going to see. I don't think it's a positional battle as much as I think it's going to be system fits. I think the Giants have genuine positional battles all across it, and it starts at the wide receiver position.
That's the best competition. Like, the receiving room is absolutely disgusting. I mean, there is speed playmakers now, and you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 12 wide receivers in that room, and you're only carrying max with the new COVID rules, max 6 receivers.
You have 12 wide receivers in that room?
You know what? Want me to count them, do you?
Yeah, let's go.
Galladay, Shepard, Slayton, Sills, Ross, Tony, Bachman, Benjamin, Dillon, Mack, and Pettis.
Okay, I forgot.
Did we say John Ross?
Yeah, he got Ross there. I think that was like the 5th one.
I gave him to you in order of opportunity. Galladay, Shepard, Slayton are your 1, 2, and 3. There's going to be a battle for 4 between Sills and Ross. Of course, Tony's not going anywhere, but he's going to be more of a package guy. And then Bachman, he's a big-time overachiever. It's going to be hard for Bachman to make it. We've interviewed him. He's a really good cat, but it's going to be really hard for him to make it. Benjamin is a camp body. Dillon's a camp body. Mack, we haven't really seen what Mack can do. And then the sleeper is Pettis. He played the last 3 games in a season, and he's fast. He's a 4.34 guy. So he's basically Ross without the name.
Yeah, he's going to play Ross's role.
Yeah, so, it's all about the receiver room for the Giants. Realistically, and I gave them to you in order, I really think it's going to be Galladay, Shepard, Slayton, Sills, and Tony. I really think that Ross doesn't even make it.
I put this up on Twitter the other day. You guys can go check me out at @FF_intervention on Twitter. I talked about how rough of a pre-first season off season has been for a rookie wide receiver. I don't know if I can think of a single one that had a rougher start to their career that didn't get injured off the bat than Kadarius Toney.
Yep.
He ends up coming in wrong shoe size, whatever the case was, ends up getting a fight with either the trainer, one of the coaches, ends up storming off the field. Another case ends up having some sort of contract dispute. Although he didn't sign his rookie contract, you still have insurance, so he didn't want to show up for whatever training there was. It's just been issue after issue. Now he has COVID, and so he's not going to be able to start out with the official training camp, right?
Yeah, well, a little bit of that's blown out of proportion. It's nobody really was worried about the contract. It was going to get signed. It was he wanted to be on the field. His agent didn't want him on the field.
Oh.
He said he was going out to play. Tony's an odd cat. One is and I don't even really know how to quite paint the picture because he's a really super unique individual, right? People aren't giving him a chance because he's not Victor Cruz. You know what I mean? And, he's got a rap career. He's really Southern. You know what I mean? His vernacular, for a better word, is he's super Southern, right? But they take it as get up. You know what I mean? So he doesn't get a lot of chance. You know what I mean? They're already pigeonholing, right? He comes from a good family. You know what I mean? And he's a fun player. He's gonna be exciting. He's got to learn the playbook and he's got to get on the field. But the shoe thing was, again, the press making something out of nothing. It probably happens to tons of players, right? The contract thing, he was all him. He wanted to be on the field. His agent didn't want him on the field. He was like, I want to be with these guys. This is my dream come true. I want to be on the field. So it was a good thing for us. We saw the passion that he wants to play football. He's telling people, hey, I don't want to talk about my music. I've been doing it for 3 years. If you haven't found me by now, well, that's too late. I'm here to do football. So like he's got a hip hop career, got a rap career, but like he's basically his statement to the public is, I don't want to talk about rap in my music. I'm doing it anyway. But if you haven't found me by now, and if it took you 3 years to find me, well, you're too late. I'm going to keep doing my music, but I'm tuned in on football. Like, he seems like his head's in the right place. The COVID thing, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. Like, I can't kill the kid. I mean, it's everywhere. Seems like everybody's getting there, and then they do 14 days and it's over. Like, I mean, I don't.
Frank Wright just got it. Frank Wright is on COVID.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, and then there's like, you know, why is he wearing 89 and not 1? And like I just think he's a different cat. People wanted Chase, or they wanted Smith, you know what I mean? Or they wanted why am I drawing him? Yeah. They wanted one of those guys. So when you get Tony, and the Giants haven't had a wide receiver out of Florida since Ike Hilliard. I mean, you guys were probably in. Okay, I mean, like, so he doesn't fit the mold, but they got to give him a chance. They really do. Like, whether you like hip hop, rap, dreads, Florida receivers, whatever it is that you don't like, I think people just need to give him a chance to see what he could do.
Yeah, I mean, plenty of people have had successful NFL careers and also done the rap thing on the side. I mean, like Bashad Breeland, who used to be on Washington, did the same thing. He, you know, played with the Kansas City Chiefs as well. He's had a great career. Tim Settle for us, right, the defensive lineman, I think just came out with some music too. So it doesn't mean that you can't be focused on football too, just because you're doing music on the side. And hey, the last rookie wide receiver you guys had that had training camp issues, that couldn't get on the field and was missing time, and everyone was worried about, did we waste the number 1 pick on him, ended up being Odell Beckham, and almost missed the entire training camp with his leg injury when he was a rookie, and then balled out. So it, you know, I think a lot of this stuff is just, you got media that is trying to make a little bit of noise, get people to tune in when there's not a lot of news going on. That's part of it. But I'm a big Tony guy.
We have a hash. We, at least at NY Giants Rush, you know, with the website, we've got like 5 or 6 writers, and you know, we're all out there on Twitter supporting them because we have to. So we just basically, when someone says anything bad about them, we respond with the hashtag flatline. We just flatline anybody that I'll literally respond to you with a hashtag that just says flatline, and then it starts catching on, and people start flatlining you over and over, and you're like, oh, what did I do? What does this mean? Because like, you know, until he blows himself up, we're gonna give him as much, you know, opportunity to do his thing. We know that in the beginning he may just be a package guy, you know what I mean? A quick slant, a reverse, you know. He may be, you know, he may be a quick hitch guy until he learns it. You know, you've got other receivers that are more mature than him. Who knows? My point about Tony was, where I'm concerned, if you want to get into the weeds, is what do you do in 2 years from now? What are you doing 3 years from now? If Galladay's not here and Shepard's gone, is he a number 1? And everyone's like, oh, don't go that far, because he's not a number 1. Regardless of what happens, he's not a number 1.
I love Kadarius Toney. He was one of my favorite prospects coming out. I was a little bit disappointed, I'm not going to lie, when he landed with the Giants. I was actually really disappointed. But I love Kadarius Toney as a prospect. I literally think, like, there's other players who have been called the human joystick. He is the human joystick. His ability to stay on his feet, his ability to absorb contact, and the ability to make moves to get away from contact. And his football knowledge is insane. His IQ is through the roof. He hasn't had a tremendous opportunity yet. And I think that's the biggest thing that he's missing so far, is an opportunity to actually see these snaps and to get on the field and play. I mean, when you talk about being on a generational, or on a team with a generational prospect who's, you know, 6'5" with Kyle Pitts, and, you know, like, you're going to be the secondary option. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Jerry Jeudy. You're going to be the secondary option in that offense in a college system. Now, when he's in the pros, I cannot wait to see him just explode onto the scene, because I think he's going to do it. But now I think with the way that he started out his NFL career, I believe that it's going to take him time to be able to do that. I don't think he's going to see the opportunity that we thought he was going to see when he got drafted in the first round.
I actually think he kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Deebo Samuel. Like I really like Kadarius Toney. I think he's going to be a really solid player. We talked about he's a little raw from a route runner perspective, but Tremendous athleticism, great change of direction. I think he's going to be a nice chess piece for you guys. And I think you're right. I think he'll be that chess piece early on, but I could picture him taking over the number 2 role second half of that season and stepping up. I think he's that special and can be that big of a playmaker when he actually does have the ball in his hand. So looking to see where he kind of shakes out with you guys. Real quick question, just as we're talking wide receivers, because I was having this debate with a couple of Giants fans. Terry McLaurin or Kenny Golladay?
Ooh.
I'm going to take Terry McLaurin for his health. I'm just going to throw that out there.
You took the words out of my mouth. I might take McLaurin because of the health aspect. Again, Galladay's a unique cat, no doubt about it, but you got to be healthy. You got to be, you're not doing anybody any good when you're in the tub.
That's right. Yeah, and I think people don't realize, like, McLaurin had 87 receptions last year, 1,118 yards. He was playing multiple games on the back half of the season
with no quarterback.
And on 2 high ankle sprains. So they were saying that Terry McLaurin was actually during the week in 2 walking boots before the game, like just not practicing, in 2 walking boots, taking the walking boots off, playing in the game, back into the walking boots. Like, he was not healthy, and he was still very, very productive. I think people sleep on him so much.
I think our fans, I think you guys are hard on your own players, because, like, from the outside looking in, like, I don't think, at least in the New York market, like, we look at the Eagles receivers and we're like, I ain't sweating that, right? But we know if McLaurin's healthy, you're like, it's going to be, you're hoping Adoree Jackson is what Adoree Jackson used to be 2 years ago, because, I think Bradbury wins that battle 8 out of 10 times. But if he's on the Adoree Jackson side, now you're like, okay, well, McLaurin's way better than I think most people realize. If you're putting me in that spot, I love Galladay, but he does have to be healthy. You got to be on the field, right? You got to be on the field at the end of the day.
It'll be interesting to me to see how the Giants decide to cover Terry McLaurin. If they end up doing double bracket coverage, a cornerback underneath with the safety over top, and then using Bradbury either in the slot or, to cover Terry McLaurin one-on-one.
Never happen. Bradbury will never be in the slot, especially when you've got, like, some of the 3 best safeties in football between Logan, Ryan, McKinney, and Peppers. They'll play 3 safeties, and Bradbury will never go in the slot. He'll always be on the outside. The guy was second in the league, with passes defended last year, not one from inside, Now, but if they force him inside because you want him to go one-on-one with the number 1, you may see it, but I wouldn't bet on that. It just doesn't happen, at least in Graham's defense, the way he used him last year.
But I feel like Bradbury's going to be wasting his talent if they try and match him up with De'Ami Brown, for example, and De'Ami Brown just runs like streaks the entire game and just ends up getting him tired for the fourth quarter, essentially. So I'm curious as to whether they move him into that zone coverage, essentially underneath, versus, where he would end up covering the slot versus, covering man-to-man deep passes like we saw a lot last year.
Graham's defense is anywhere from 5 to 6 defensive backs on the field at one time. And I don't want to jump the gun. The Giants' defensive backs are at this point are just evil. They really are. They're all first round and second round picks. And even guy like, a Thorpe finalist with Julian Love doesn't even really get any credit, but he'd start on any other team. And he's a Swiss Army knife that came in. They made him play free safety for a year, then moved him back to corner. Chase, I would say it would be highly unlikely, that they would sweat McLaurin that much to move Bradbury out, because I'm fairly confident that either Adoree Jackson or Holmes can at least run with him. I'm not saying they'll shut him down because he's too good of a receiver to shut that kid down. But I don't think you'll see Bradbury play inside. It's not his forte. And you're asking him to do something. This is not his.
Yeah, that's not his talent.
Yeah. And especially the way Graham plays. If you get into the all 22, you'll see they're running 5 and 6 DBs sometimes.
So when they're running 5-6 DBs, how do you see that shaking out from a snap count perspective between Jabril Peppers, Logan Ryan, and Xavier McKinney. Out of the three of them, which two do you think end up getting more snaps than the others? Because McKinney was, non-existent last year because of injury, but I feel like he could be a tremendous asset in that secondary.
So I put a tweet out, like Jace was saying something about referring to a tweet that he put out last week. I did the same thing. I said, McKinney in college was the man. They drafted him to be the man. Now it's time for him to be the man, right? So it's a lot of potential. So to answer your question is Ryan and McKinney get the snaps. Peppers goes down and plays in the box and plays linebacker. You're not taking Peppers. Jabril Peppers wears the C. Okay, he's a captain. You're not cutting his snaps. He's the best open field tackler on the team. He's from New Jersey. Kid's a great lightning bolt. Room kid, a ton of play. He loves football. They just bring him down inside the box and let him play, whether you want to call it a Joe back or a monster back or whatever you want to call it. They just bring him down in the box. So, I guess if you're talking about 50 to 65 snaps, maybe Peppers loses 5 to 7 snaps, but not significantly because they'll bring him down. They'll bring him down, move out a traditional outside linebacker, and they'll put Peppers in the box that can cover the tight end, and still run.
Chase, we actually talk about some of the training camp battles. I think that's one of the more interesting one for Washington too. Is we in Jack Del Rio's defense are going to play a lot of what they call like the Buffalo nickel, right? Where you got someone who can do really well against the run and pass, and we have guys like Landon Collins and Cam Curl, and I think Khaleke Hudson over there is going to be a name to kind of watch out for. From your perspective, Chase, from a Washington side, who do you think ends up taking that role?
I was really disappointed because of the fact that, we could have had Malik Hooker to guard that safety, and then we could have had Landon Collins. And no, Dallas had to go out and get Malik Hooker. I was really, really disappointed. I pretty much cried for like 3 straight hours. But
isn't that finalized?
I don't even know at this point. I don't even want to look up anymore. I don't want to look up anymore.
I knew they were like wrapping up negotiations, and I did see your tweet actually because you tweeted about that too. But yeah, that was a little disappointing for me. But it's
so sad.
We're kind of in the same boat though, where we're going to run a lot of what we call that, like I said, the Buffalo nickel, where I think you got like the strong safety, the free safety, and then that like Buffalo nickel. So I'm curious
to come back healthy. I mean, that's a tough injury to come back from.
That is. The thing is, if he doesn't, if he isn't able to have a high snap count, I think because of the position, because of the versatility of the guys that they've brought in the secondary, I think he doesn't have to play as big of a role as he was originally intended to when they signed him to such a large contract, because of guys like Cam Curl and guys who are starting to emerge like Khaleke Hudson, who I think end up getting a lot of field time for us.
Yeah, I mean, Curl's interesting. He's not very dynamic, but I mean, you got Fuller, just a big fan of him. But Collins, it's got to be healthy. I liked him when he's lighter. He was a better play when he was lighter. When he put that extra 15 pounds on and just got jacked, his game kind of changed.
Agreed.
Yeah, it did 100%. I mean, when we sit there, we look at Cameron Curl. Yeah, his dynamism is not up there. I mean, there's a reason why he was a 7th round pick, but he ended up performing, which for some weird reason we always get from like 5th to 7th round picks being the Washington football team. We always end up getting these picks that end up like way outperforming what they're projected to be at the safety position. And this is a different regime, and yet we're still getting it. So that's always exciting. But I do believe that we're going to end up running 3 cornerbacks the majority of the time and not safeties. With Jam Davis obviously locking in a spot, I really don't see that we're going to end up playing more than 2 safeties outside of maybe probably 30-40% of the time. I like Cam Curl. I just don't know how often he plays, and I think that we have to be playing more 3 cornerback sets just because our quarterbacks are just so dynamic. It's ridiculous.
You're big on Jackson?
What's that? Oh, I love William Jackson. Yeah.
You do? Okay.
I liked him before he ended up with Washington. William Jackson's he's solid in press coverage. Overall, he gets beat by bigger defenders. But we can end up mixing that up a little bit, especially with St. John Baptiste. So I'm sitting there looking at a great cornerback group as a whole with plenty of depth. Injuries shouldn't affect us regardless. I think we're pretty much set at that position.
Yeah, and I think what I like about our secondary is everyone that we're talking about here is really, really tough in the run game. I mean, when you think about guys like Jackson, Cam Curl, Fuller, like guys that can step up and contribute in the run game as well. So I feel like Cameron Curl gives us a lot of flexibility, which I really like. And I think he ends up kind of playing more of that where we think of like Collins is the strong safety. I think Cameron Curl probably fits into a little bit of that Buffalo nickel that we're talking about, maybe asked to play in the slot once in a while. I think he's got more coverage skills than people realize. And then, like I said, I think he is a very good, strong tackler. So I think you look around this defense, and that's what I like about Washington is so many guys offer that versatility. You know, you got a guy like Fuller that can line up on the outside, that can line up in the slot. You got a guy like Curl that could play strong safety, free safety, Buffalo nickel. You got guys all over that can then move around. And it's kind of like Graham, where guys are asked to play different positions and shift around the defense. I think you see a lot of that in Washington too. And I think that's what makes both secondaries and both defenses very dangerous.
Why did they trade Fuller? I don't ever understand trading. You know, I guess it was Alex Smith was the trade, but like you trade him and then what do you go? Oh shit, I shouldn't have done that, and then you bring him back. Like
I think they knew what they were giving up. I think they were just that desperate to find a quarterback. Is honestly what it was. And
different regime.
Yeah.
Different manager.
I like the player a lot. But I'm always kind of curious, like why it's hard to find great corners. It just is. I mean, there's a million of them, but there's not a million good ones. You know,
they viewed him as a slot corner. So essentially, all they thought that he was ever going to be was a slot guy. They thought they had their outside guys with the way that they drafted. They didn't because they couldn't stay healthy. Meanwhile, you know, Fuller was an expendable asset, just being a slot, you know, nickel. And at the time, we didn't play a lot of 3 cornerback sets. We were very blitz heavy. So they ended up getting rid of a piece that played like 40% of the snaps, along with, what was it, a 3rd round pick, I believe.
In the Alex Smith deal? Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, we got rid of a tertiary piece essentially and a 3rd round pick for a starting quarterback. They thought it was a great deal. I wasn't a big fan of it, but now that we got him back, I'm loving it. And the fact that he's developed into an outside and slot guy is even more just, you know, exciting for Washington football team.
He's got big game experience, you know, going to Kansas City. Yep. I like him. Like Jackson to me doesn't scare me. Like I don't see it. The guy played at Trinity College. He didn't, you know, and then he had to transfer to Houston to even make it to the pros. Like there's guys that fall through the cracks. It happens all the time. But I don't see Jackson as, I'm like, put it this way. If Fuller's a borderline Pro Bowler, let's say,
yeah,
like on a scale of 1 to 10, and Fuller's like a 7.5 and 8, Jackson to me is like a 3. I don't even see them. So I don't even. See, I just don't see it at all. Like I just don't see it. Like I find like they didn't put enough time into that position. He's not the guy. Like he's a guy. But like when you look how good Fuller is on one side, I didn't understand the move. You know what I mean?
With his length and ability to play press coverage, I think he's a perfect fit in what we're trying to do in Del Rio's defense. I think systematically he's going to be a really, really nice fit for Washington. I will say that. Just because we do like that like long press coverage kind of corner, and he's done well with that. I mean, he even held his own against. He got beat really badly on one play, but Odell Beckham when they played Cleveland last year. So I do like him from a man coverage perspective too, and I think with this pass rush, I think having a guy that has that ability to jam at the line of scrimmage and the ability to play pretty solid man coverage, I think it's going to be a good asset because I don't think he's going to be asked to hang around with wide receivers too long with the pass rush we have. So if everybody stays healthy, so I think good system fit from that perspective.
Okay, no, it's good. It's good to know because it seems like such a dramatic difference between a guy that went to Trinity, had to transfer to Houston to get here, compared to a guy like Fuller. Like he just stands out. You know what I mean? And then they're like, oh yeah, Jackson guy. Like I'm always just kind of like systematically, they're gonna I would think most teams pick on Jackson. You know what I mean? Like if on the outsides. I mean, Collins isn't much of a cover safety. He's more of a thumper, and he's always been a tackle machine. But like on the outside, I would think Jackson's gonna get his hands full this year.
And this is why Chase was always saying the Malik Hooker thing is we continually get beat on deep plays and big explosive plays. So I know he's brought that up multiple times. I'll let you take it from there, Chase.
Yeah, so Washington was actually really good at plays that were 20 yards plus overall. So we didn't let a lot go like from 20 yards to like 30 yards, right? But 40 yards and 50 yards or over, we led the NFL in both statistical categories by the end of the season. 40 yards or more, it was like second, and then 50 yards more is first. By the end of the season, it was done because they realized that if they had time in the pocket, they had a speed guy, they're going to beat our corners because our corners weren't great at press coverage. So by the time it ended up, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, they could get downfield, it was done. Game over.
Too late, yeah.
Game over. Game over. So that happened repeatedly up against Washington. It has for years and years. Regardless of who's been the defensive coordinator, whatever it is, we just never invest in that position. So sitting there looking at it, I wanted Malik Hooker, who I know has the speed, the capability to, run sideline to sideline, and could end up being a ball hawk to an extent and at least make some plays on the ball because teams are going to be taking shots of that. That's the one way to beat Washington. You can't beat them, with the running back. You can't beat them. Arguably, you can
I don't know. We beat you twice, so I don't remember.
Which is why when last show we talked about, what was it, weeks 14 through 18 on the schedule, and I had week 18 as a loss to the Giants. I just am expecting to get my heart broken by the Giants again.
I mean, look, they're on paper, they're very equal teams. They've improved a lot. Both the Giants and the Washington Football Club / team dedicated the offseason to getting better. Like some teams kind of sat on their hands, and I think both of those squads were like, we got to do something. Snyder's tired. He's all caught up in paying all sorts of fines and all sorts of donation money for bad places to work and all that stuff. But the guys inside the building were focused on getting the team better, and they will be better. I mean, I have no idea what the offense will look like, but the defense is still, you're making your money on your front 6-7 players. They're all, really dynamic players, and it's been that way for 4 years now. Like they've always made a living up front.
Yeah, and we talked about last week with Logan Paulson about how we probably kept our playbook a little bit vanilla from a Scott Turner perspective because he really does like to run a vertical offense because of Alex Smith, Kyle Allen.
Did you not
Dwayne
see
Haskins.
the Giants offense? Yeah, I'm very aware what vanilla playbooks look like. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see when you have a guy who can take downfield shots like a Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that's what he's excelled at in his career. To see how Scott Turner's offense opens up, and now that you start bringing in some dynamic playmakers, like you still have Logan Thomas, you still have Terry McLaurin, but now you bring in De'Ami Brown, Curtis Samuel, guys that can really stretch the field. I think you're finally going to start to see that open up. What's that?
Chase doesn't like Samuels? Is there like some?
Not on the outside, he doesn't like him.
I don't want him on the outside.
Okay.
He's got the speed, he's got the agility to play on the inside. He cannot track the ball downfield. Like he had just many unrealized air yards as he actually had completed air yards back when he was used in this offense back in 2019. It's just because he can't track the ball. Like he's looking up and he literally cannot find the ball. When he does, he has stone hands. So, normally he's in coverage because of the fact that he doesn't trust his quarterback and he can't get that separation. I mean, part of that has to do with Cam Newton, obviously, but maybe it's different with Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I just don't. I don't like it. Like, why not just play him underneath where he was successful last season? Extremely successful last season.
But I think we started to see Curtis Samuel develop more as an outside. And don't forget, like with Curtis Samuel, it's interesting because when he was in college, he was another one of those guys that was a chess piece over at Ohio State, right? So they used him at a lot in a running back role. They used him in motion. They used him in the slot. They used him on the outside. They used him kind of all over the place. So I think it's just taking a little bit of time for a receiver to kind of refine his game. And I think going back and watching some of the All-22, I actually liked what he started to do towards the back end of the season from the outside. So I'm starting to get more comfortable with the vision of what the staff has there. And I actually think they're going to, the more I kept watching it and the more I'm thinking of like how Scott Turner runs his offense, I think you're going to see Samuel play a lot of outside to Chase's disappointment. But I think we're starting to see that growth of that young wide receiver. And I think we're going to start to see a little bit of a special core developing with him and McLaurin, which will be nice. But
is there a long-term play at QB here in the making, or no? Is there?
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers in 2022, right?
That just became real. Like that really did just become real.
I know
with this news, and I was talking about it before. I thought it was actually a thing in 2022, not 2021. In 2022, I thought it could be a thing. I was really banking on Matt Ryan, to be honest with you, with the trade, maybe a first-round pick, second-round pick.
Interesting.
I genuinely think that Washington football could make a significant run at Aaron Rodgers through free agency, because he's going to be able to pick his team moving forward after 2022 if he signs for this 1-year contract.
And if Daniel Jones doesn't work out, you guys are going to be right there.
Do you guys really? I know it's just, I guess it's one of those duh type of questions, but like, you really want to go? Like, are you one step away from the Super Bowl? You really want Rodgers like at 30? What would he be? 37?
Yeah. I think it'd be like 38, 39. But I honestly believe that we are one step away right now from at least being contenders. I think that Ryan Fitzpatrick, if he plays lights out, like he's 68.2 completion percentage last season, if I remember correctly. If he plays on that level where he's not throwing interceptions, not turning the ball over, all you got to rely on is defense. I mean, we didn't play great last year up until the end. But, I mean, we still gave Tampa Bay a run for their money in the playoffs. I think it's very possible. I don't think
we probably played Tampa Bay harder than any team did throughout the playoffs, actually.
Giants played them real well in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, but that's the beginning. That's I
forgot that doesn't count, Chase.
No,
but a serious question to both of you. If you put Aaron Rodgers on Washington's team and you give them one more year of building this core out and one more draft, placing Rodgers in at the helm at quarterback, name me the teams that are better than Washington. And I think it's a short list. I think it's Tampa Bay and Kansas City if you were to slot in Aaron Rodgers to the Washington football team.
I don't think it's Tampa Bay.
Seattle's always going to be like, they just always ball. I mean, like, you know, Russ basically told them, if you don't give me an offensive line and protect me, I'm done. He'll be the next Giants quarterback. We already know he's got an affiliation for New York. He's already said he's got an affiliation for New York. He's got a wife that's in showbiz, right? So, like, Seattle was always going to be a team you can't sleep on, right?
Wouldn't that be crazy to see Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott,
Deshaun Watson in Philly.
Aaron Rodgers. Oh, yeah, Deshaun Watson in Philly and Aaron Rodgers.
That'd be sick.
Oh, my God. That would be insane.
I was literally just writing down all the names of the teams because I was going to go the same point. I was like, the wheels were starting to turn.
Watson will probably be locked up, so it's I don't know. If he's gonna...
Yeah, if everything's true, he should be. But holy hell, that would be insane. That would be mind blowing to see Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, all in the same division. Like, boosh! Like my mind just blew.
So the reason I also think Washington will be a player for someone like an Aaron Rodgers is I think you look at like the teams that might need quarterbacks next year, and we'll focus on just the NFC East for a second. We talked about this last week too, but you have Philly, who has 2 first-round draft picks, potentially a third if Carson Wentz plays the whole season over in Indianapolis. You have the Giants with the Bears pick plus their own pick. If all these teams need quarterbacks, the only route Washington is probably going to have to be able to secure one if they have a good season and are middle of the pack or a playoff team is to go after that free agent, because I think they're going to get jumped all over by the NFC East for the available quarterbacks. So if we have any success this year, I think that's the route that we have to go is free agency.
The Giants are right there lock and step, because if Jones doesn't have a good year, see, what people don't know is, like, because, people don't want to like Jones, but he broke 5 New York Giant rookie records. Okay, his rookie year was completions, attempts, touchdowns, yards, and touchdowns versus one team, which was against your team. He threw 6 touchdowns against your team in 2000.
Well aware.
19. Yeah. Again, I'm only mentioning it because you're there. But like, and then you come in, and I'm not making excuses for the kid. I'm just saying that he played nice rookie ball, but for any reason, he doesn't work out. The Giants are the same position as Washington. They're not going to go draft another QB and start all over again. The Giants are, you could write it down, the hot take, if you'd like to. The Giants aren't drafting another quarterback and starting all over again, because now it's new GM, new OC, new quarterback, and you're talking about 3 more years. The Giants aren't doing that. The Giants are ready to win playoffs this year and run next year. So if Jones isn't the guy, just like Chase said, it's a Matt Ryan, Russell Wilson play. It's a, I don't want to say Cousins, but I mean, like, I don't know whose contract is up. You know what I'm saying? Like
Cousins has 1 more year.
Okay, so that's it. Jones is going to get another year. Whether he starts, I don't know. Remember, he broke 5 New York Giant records as a rookie. Okay, and then he gets new OC. Just like, I mean, again, no excuses, but new OC, new head coach, no training camp, COVID, no preseason, and all rookie offensive line. Except for Hernandez. I mean, and he's got Golden Tate as his wide receiver, and he loses Barkley. So, like, he was in the hole right from the start. Like, he was in the hole. He didn't have a head coach that knew what he was doing yet. Remember, Jason Garrett had not called plays in Dallas for 10 years. Okay, and now he's calling plays. I got a tight end who cannot catch a damn cold. Okay. I got Golden Tate, who's like, just, I don't know. He's on steroids. He's off steroids. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, it was a mess. And again, no excuses. But if he doesn't have a good season, he goes to the backup role, and the Giants will go get a veteran, whether that's Ryan, Russ, whoever it is. That first round Bears pick will be gold to somebody.
Teddy Bridgewater.
I was just looking at Kirk Cousins' contract, guys.
You want us to suck, Chase? I got you.
No. I was just sitting there thinking, like, the conversation next year at this time is going to be Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. It's going to be Teddy Bridgewater and Daniel Jones.
Yeah, but Jones isn't going anywhere.
Right.
He's gonna, if anything, if Matt Ryan comes in for 2 years, he learns under Matt Ryan. I mean, dude. It was a point of season when he was the best deep ball passer in the NFL. He has the ability.
The best runner until he tripped up.
He cut his. I don't know any quarterback that's fast. I'm sorry.
You said you don't know any quarterback that's
you're that fast. When you're that fast, sometimes you trip. And by the way, you would Haskins. The biggest joke. He was worried about selfies, let alone playing. So let's not go stones, my friend.
Oh, I hated Haskins. I hated that pick more than anything else. I hated that pick more than any other pick in Washington football team history when it happened. I literally walked away from the TV, and I didn't get back on the draft the rest of the night. I was so pissed.
Any quarterback that has 1 year, it's not Haskins, it's Trubisky, it's the rest of them. Any quarterback that has 1 year of college experience is never going to succeed. Very few do. You can't start in high school and then sit for 3 years and be an all-pro. You could be good, you could be okay, but guys like Trubisky and Haskins, they need more starting time. You can't just have 1 year starting year.
They can come into the league and be successful. I think you just have to put them in the right situation where they can be successful, meaning you can give them 2 years to groom and learn, because they're not ready, to your point, to come in and play from 1 year starting college football to, be walking in and saving a franchise.
When you started Ohio State last time you started was your senior year of high school, that's a problem. I mean, it's just a problem. It's a maturity issue. It's a maturation process of the development of the QB. And nobody wants to sit a QB now more than 5 games. So, he was doomed from the start.
It's all that CB CBA agreement from 2011. It literally like made everything great and everything terrible all at the same time. Quarterbacks have a 2-3 year window.
Yep.
And I'm gonna give one quick comment here too, because we talked about the Kirk Cousins contract. I just looked it up. He has $45 million in dead cap next year, so he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He has 2 years left. 2 years left.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I drafted Kellen Mond in a lot of rookie drafts, and then I realized that. So
well versed.
Yeah, I don't know where the Giants would go. I don't know where the Redskins would go. I mean, like Fitzmagic throws a lot of picks. I mean, they're both exactly in the same situation. You've got a better defensive line. I got a better defensive backfield. You have no running back. My running back's coming off an injury. You know, I've got a receiving core. You've got a really elite receiver, right? Like they're very similar teams. And then Philadelphia tanks it, so you get to the playoffs. So you know, they're very similar teams. You know,
I agree with you all the way around, but you got to put some respect on Antonio Gibson's name.
Yeah, come on, bro.
I got no problem with Gibson.
Dude, so you have no idea how much I wanted you guys to beat us last year, so that we would end up getting the 10th, 12th overall draft pick. Instead, we ended up
because you wanted Tony
taking another first-round pick, or we could have had a shot at Justin Fields. But no, I was so pissed when we ended up winning that game. I did not want us to win the year out. I did not want us to make the playoffs. And people are so short-sighted when it comes to that kind of stuff. I understand you want to establish winning culture. You're not establishing a winning culture by going 7-9 and making the playoffs.
No, but you don't. But in football, you don't tank. You just don't. It's the golden rule.
Players don't tank. GMs do.
It's just not ethical on any level. You could tank in baseball. You could tank in basketball. Football is played, and when you play soft, someone puts their helmet on your chin strap and knocks you out. People get hurt. You have to play all the way through, regardless of what happens. Yes, you wanted a pick, but if you wanted that pick chased, then your GM should have moved up and got the pick anyway. Like it comes down to like what's in front of you.
So we can move back as well. Like so we can.
You could have done it. Look how many times New England, Kansas City, and Seattle have moved around the last 4 years.
Like, I don't disagree with you, but GMs want to tank. Coaches and players will never tank because you risk the risk of injury.
Some GMs tank. The ones with integrity don't tank.
And here's the thing, though. I think it was important for Washington to win the division last year because I think it was important for people to buy in to Ron Rivera's culture.
Agreed.
And they're changing the entire culture inside that building, from the front office to the way they run business to the president to
especially
the coaching
with
staff,
all the negative
players.
Press you've had, right?
Exactly. So I actually was I'm a little bit off on that one from you, Chase, just because I wanted us to establish that winning culture. And I think the players start to buy in on it when you play playoff football, when you're going up against Tom Brady. And then not only are you going up against Tom Brady in the playoffs, but you're playing them tough and then watching them win the Super Bowl and saying, hey, we were hanging right with those guys. It makes you feel like you have that confidence going into the season that you can build on that. So I was kind of all for I was in the boat of like, win. I want to win. I want playoff football.
I'm with you, Ryan, because I've seen the Giants are pulling in the Giants had some of the best free agent signings this year purely because they saw the 30th or the 29th ranked defense go to the 9th ranked defense. They went from 29 to 9, 30th to 9th. And Logan Ryan says, I'll go out and get you players because this is the baddest defense I've ever played in, the way you run this thing. And because they were balls to the wall and they were playing and they were flying around and making plays, that culture was like, come to the Giants. They play great defense. And with Leonard Williams, Martinez, Bradbury, and Logan, you've got now a continuity that is infectious. So to Ryan's point, if you had lost that game, while you would have been happy, you wouldn't be in the same exact, or you wouldn't have the same momentum. You know what I mean? Like people would be like, "We really want to go there." They won 6 games. Who cares? Where the Giants are like, "Well, we won 4. Now we win 6. 10 wins is the goal. Let's go from the 9th ranked defense to this, to the 5th ranked defense." Like they have goals. If you lose.
I'm with you. I think it establishes the culture a little bit. So, hey guys, great show. We hit the hour mark, so I want to make sure everyone gets a quick roundtable. Tell people where to find you. You're at Giants Rush. We're going to start with you. Why don't you kick it around? Tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. Of course, you can check the website out. We just redid it, by the way. It looks fantastic. nygiantsrush.com. There's like 6 writers that write for their new content all the time. We interviewed probably like 10, 15 Giants, every other week. So if you're happen to be just a sports fan, there's plenty of interviews up on the website. And of course, Twitter, at NY Giants Rush. You can kind of find out like the rest of the crew if you want to go and harass them throughout the year, about how we beat you twice, but you made the playoffs. Let's have some fun. And, appreciate you guys having me on. You guys are good guys. And it's going to be a battle this year.
Yeah, I think so. Chase, I'll kick it over to you.
Oh, you guys can go check us out at FF_intervention, along with join our circle _ over there on Twitter. You guys can also go find us at youtube.com/fantasyintervention. Once again, that's youtube.com/fantasyintervention. We just released our rankings over there for single quarterback dynasty leagues. Hopefully we'll have redraft up by the time, the season actually starts. That's going to be over there at fantasyintervention.com. Once again, fantasyintervention.com. We have like 5 scheduled articles that are ready to go out. We're just trying to give it a little space between each one. So very excited to get those ones kicked off. I believe Taylor has one coming up who has been absolutely killing it. Very excited about that. And then make sure you guys go check out Fantasy Football Discussion if you guys are over there on Facebook. Fantasy Football Discussion, we have 24,800 active members now. We picked up like 600 over the past week. It's been absolutely insane. Fantasy Football Discussion over there on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys are doing a lot of channels, because when we started the podcast off, it was just YouTube. So if you got YouTube, you can go out there and subscribe to the Giants guys on YouTube. But we realized that we stripped the audio out to move it to Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We weren't even doing that. For a long time, we were just doing a video podcast. And people, so it's great that you guys are on a lot of channels, because people listen to your content in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely.
100%.
And I'll wrap it up with I'll do the mark. I'll do really quick here. You can find me on Twitter at WhatGibbsFF. And thank you for joining us tonight. It was awesome having everyone here and a good conversation. And looking forward to seeing how we actually square off weeks 2 and 18. I think it is.
Yeah, and we maybe if you guys are up for it, we'll have you on the Giants Guys podcast. Before the season starts, if you guys are up for
it. Let's do it. Let's go.
Let's go.
All right, cool. I'll
have a good night, everyone.
Thanks for having me.